Hello and good morning. It is a little after 7 and we are in the little kind of central square here in Morro Bay. This is day 2 of our ramble up the California coastline from down here in Los Angeles. We started at around Malibu and into Morro Bay, which has been a lovely little seaside town, and now we are headed up the coast to up Big Sur coast. Unfortunately, I called ahead, and there's been a landslide somewhere around here, Plaskett Creek, so we can't make it all the way through. But it's such a wonderful ride that I think we're gonna try and go ahead and head on up there. It's about 60 miles up to where we need to turn around, but it should be some fantastic riding. We'll turn around and come back down to Cambria and then cut over on some winding, smaller roads up through here between these two lakes, Lake Nacimiento, up here, and then up down through Carmel Valley over to towards Santa Cruz, and that's on the other side of the map, so we'll get there later in the day, but it promises to be even better riding than yesterday. I'm really excited to continue the journey. It's a little chilly. It hasn't even reached 50 degrees here, so I decided this morning, since it's not going to get over mid 60s and I'll be moving and along the water, that I got wool long johns on and a sweatshirt and a thermal, so I'm going warm. And then I also put on this neck gaiter because it's gonna be cold, and also I didn't realize, but yesterday I got a pretty good redneck riding up here, so gonna try and protect that so I don't get it any worse. Oh, this has been a fantastic little town. I almost don't want to leave. Really neat, but the road is calling. The ramble calls us to continue. Farewell, Morro Bay. I fueled up in Cambria and then headed north. My first stop was at an overlook just north of San Simeon, with views of the coastline and Donay Point. The wind off the ocean wasn't too strong. Pretty gorgeous up here. Absolutely incredible. It's about, let's see, 8 in the morning. This is one of the first pull-offs. This is gonna be a long ride. It's really pretty. But the chill air had me stopping occasionally to warm my hands on the engine head. Along the way, I passed several flatbed trucks, each carrying 2 or 3 large boulders north along the winding road. I stopped again at another overlook to tape up my helmet, where one of my visor pin locks was missing, causing a lot of extra wind noise. So my helmet has a pin lock screen, which means that you can put a liner in it that prevents it from fogging over, and it has these little pins here, and one of them has come out and I'm getting this whistling noise in there, so I'm gonna stick some tape over that. And luckily I have some tape with me here in my tool roll. What a backdrop. Try not to drop any tools over the edge. I'm gonna try some Gorilla tape instead of electrical tape. That ought to do the trick. Won't block too much of my vision. Next stop was Ragged Point,
for a quick break before I came to a halt for construction along the road. The flagger told me that the boulders I had seen being transported up the road were being used to reinforce the base of the cliff below the road. After a short wait, as the rocks were loaded off the truck, I was flagged through and continued on to the tiny town of Gorda, where I grabbed a hot coffee and a muffin for breakfast and to warm up my hands before continuing on the next few miles to where the road was blocked at Limekiln State Park. Turning around, I headed back south down the coast with a brief stop at the rocky beach at Mill Creek. I continued back down the coast and met up with Woody for lunch back in the town of Cambria before heading inland to make the detour around and behind the Santa Lucia Mountains that rise abruptly from the Pacific and form the fantastic scenery of Big Sur. My detour took me inland on the narrow, winding Santa Rosa Creek Road that snakes its way over the mountains. This was incredible riding with tight turns and dramatic changes in elevation. At times I wondered if the road could get any narrower or if I had possibly taken a wrong turn.
Let's see. So we've just gone, if you can see this, up the coast, back down again, stopped in Cambria, and now it actually doesn't show up on this map, but there's a little mountain road that went up here north of 46, and then it comes down to 46, and we've just rejoined 46, and we're going to go up 46 to Vineyard Road, which is this road that goes up here, and we're going to cut through a couple of roads that aren't showing up on this map. We're going to cut through here between these two lakes, Lake Nacimiento on Interlake Road, and then weave our way up to Carmel Valley and down, and we'll end up on the other side of the map, coming down into toward Santa Cruz and our final destination. So the temperature it's heating up. We're getting inland. Not the same cool weather as by the ocean.
After some incredible riding, I rejoined the larger Highway 46 and continued on for a few more miles before turning north on the aptly named Vineyard Road through field after field of grapes and vineyards. As I traveled further inland, the vegetation became drier and the temperatures started to rise. This drier climate increased as I passed between the two man-made reservoirs of Lake Nacimiento and Lake San Antonio. 20 further miles down the road in Lockwood, which is no more than an abandoned corner store with a few trees, I pulled over for a break and a drink of water. As I was sitting in the shade by the bike, I heard the rumble of a Harley-Davidson approaching. The big cruiser took the turn, and seeing my Halcyon 450, pulled over. Gary, the rider, turned out to be originally from Minnesota, but never left California after leaving the Marines in the early 1980s. He had worked at a Harley dealership for many years, but ended up making a living doing maintenance at a nearby vineyard. He couldn't get enough of the Janus, and told me when he first saw it, he thought it was a Vincent. We shared stories and our thoughts on riding, and he gave me directions for the next portions of my ride. He told me that my intended route over the mountains and down through Carmel Valley was some of the best riding he had ever done in his life. We said our farewells, and I geared up and headed back northwest toward Holon and then King City. As I neared King City, where I would need to get back on Highway 101 for a brief stint, the wind across the plains increased dramatically, and I found myself fighting to keep the bike in a straight line. With the increased speeds of the faster divided lane highway, the wind made for a difficult and tiring ride. Fortunately, I only had a few miles to go before heading west again through more agricultural land and the foothills of the mountains I would cross to reach the head of Carmel Valley. Just at the foot of the mountains, the road dipped down and hooked right across a historic steel truss bridge over the beautiful Arroyo Seco, a seasonal stream flowing down from the Santa Lucia Mountains. With the change in scenery, the wind dropped, and I took another break to gaze down at the clear mountain water rushing beneath the bridge.
All right, so we are now here, where the road crosses the river and there's a T. We're going to go up this way through the Sierra de Salinas, down into Carmel Valley to Monterey, and then we're going to get back on the one because this is where it was blocked, going down to Big Sur, and we're going to head up and over to Santa Cruz. And I believe this is some of the best riding. I mean, we've seen some pretty amazing riding today, but this is, from what I've heard, pretty amazing as well.
From there, the road wound its way up the Arroyo Seco before turning right north, up to the back of Carmel Valley. Gary wasn't wrong about this portion of the ride. The road swept up over and through the mountains, abruptly diving from open fields into tunnel-like forested sections that suddenly opened back to clearings or over streams. Once again, I found myself laughing out loud with the sheer joy of piloting my own machine through such incredible landscape. By now, the sun was angling lower in the sky, and the warm, late afternoon light cast speckled shadows across the road. I stopped to top off my tank in Carmel Village. Another rider asked if I was in town for the Quail, a world-famous concourse-style motorcycle show that was happening that same week down in Monterey. I said I wished I was, before continuing on down the valley to Carmel by the Sea and Monterey. Here, Highway 1 turns into a divided lane highway with higher speeds, where I once again found myself fighting the wind that was now gusting off the Pacific Ocean. Monterey Bay curves all the way round 40 or so miles to Santa Cruz. Either because I was tired from what at this point was 11 hours I had spent in the saddle, or because it seemed shorter on the map, this portion of the ride on the freeway seemed to take forever. Riding through brackish-smelling marshes, off the bay, through Castroville, Moss Landing, and finally, my destination, Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz is a surfing city with active beaches, bicyclists, cafes, motorcycles, and a perpetually balmy climate. I pulled up at our destination, our Halcyon 450 customer Jeremy's house, to see Woody ready to greet me at the gate. While I had plenty of good riding still ahead of me, I was glad to park the bike in the garage next to an older sibling, Jeremy's 450 number 214, as well as a small fleet of vintage bikes. It had been one of the best days of riding in my life, and I was ready for some food and a beer or two.
How was it?
Oh my God. Unbelievable. Absolutely incredible.